just to say a couple of things. Firstly, you might wonder what a Lord Lieutenant is and what a Lord Lieutenant has to do with this. I am the Queen's representative in the county as part of my role, and part of it is about honours and awards and encouraging people to put in for honours and awards. This is one you actually have to apply for as a company, whereas if you wanted to put one of your number up for an honour or award, which would be something like a CBE, an OBE or an MBE, you actually have to do it, and not you have to do it for them. So this is one that you can do yourself. And if you are successful and I come and present the award, then you will get to hear much more about what a Lord Lieutenant actually does. So that's one incentive to put in for the award. And you'll see on the very first slide, which is going to move now, that this is an award that really does have the sponsorship of Her Majesty. And you'll see from the comment there that the royal family put on Twitter, and that was really, having watched the awards established in my name grow in stature and influence, I continue to be impressed by the way that they've given an opportunity to big organisations and small, enabling them to project themselves on the world stage. And I think that's really important, and it really does help you project yourself on the world stage. And I'll come to that in a minute, but it's a little bit like being a Harrods or somewhere else where you get the by royal appointment sign. This is the Queen's award stamp, and it does make a difference when you're conversing with other organisations who are going to give contracts. Next, please. As you'll see, there are 4 different categories, and I'll go into each of these in more detail so you know exactly what they are, but it's innovation, international trade, promoting opportunity through social mobility, and sustainable development. So we'll come to all those in a minute. So what are the benefits? Why should you actually take time and trouble to fill in one of those forms? Well, one benefit is you can fly the flag outside your headquarters or where you do business, but actually it'll get your business noticed, and it does sort of put you one jump ahead of competition. Your company will be globally recognised as an outstanding British brand, and that does make a difference if you're particularly working in other markets, because there is no such thing as good as having a royal family sort of brand that's attached to you, particularly if you're trying to do trade with Japan and the Middle East, who really do lap it up in terms of giving your company a sort of official stamp. And we often say that there are many companies who will be waiting outside the door, and you will be actually inside having the conversations because you've got this hallmark of quality before you actually walk in. From previous winners, they do say that sales growth has improved as a result of it. And in fact, one of last year's winners, who actually has won again, or 2 years ago won, and has won again this year, Photocentric from Peterborough, the CEO will say that he's put in for other awards and now he doesn't bother, because the only award that he's found that turbocharges his business is the Queen's Award for Enterprise. So if you want to know more, speak to the CEO of Photocentric. And of course, the reason why everybody would go is the award gets presented by the Lord Lieutenant at your premises. But the really important bit about that, and hopefully some of the businesses that you hear from in a minute, because I presented it, it really is a chance to celebrate success with your organisation. It's a real boost to morale, and people suddenly realise that excellent companies only happen to be excellent companies if they have excellent staff working from them. That's in all parts. It's not just the owner, it's not just the inventor. It's actually everybody in the team makes that company excellent. And it's also a chance, as it says there, to be able to celebrate with your stakeholders, people who've supported you in your enterprise to get to where you actually have got. And it's also a nice time just to sit there and think back all you've achieved before you go on to your next stage of development. And then 2 lucky winners, or 2 lucky members from the company, can actually attend a royal reception. It used to be hosted by Her Majesty, but at age 94, they decided that actually it'll be hosted by another member of the royal family. And then currently that's Prince Charles, but that for this year is on hold until we know how far you all have to be apart. Next, please. Thank you. So it's important that you look at the eligibility criteria and you make sure that your company fits. You must be based in the UK, and that's not to say that you can't have a parent company that's somewhere else. For example, Cambridge Consultants, their parent company is French, but they are an entity, they're a self-contained enterprise as part of that organisation within the UK. So they actually fit, and they've won 6 awards, so they must fit. You must file your tax returns with HM Revenue and Customs, and they will check that. You have at least 2 full-time employees or their part-time equivalents, and you must demonstrate strong corporate social responsibility. And I'll come on to that, because it's not that you have to at least show that you're thinking about it if you're not yet at the size when you're actually doing it, but it's actually part of your raison d'etre of your company, that when you get to a certain level, these are the things that you're going to be actually doing. And I clarified this with the Queen's Award for Enterprise, because it says since 2016, winners cannot reapply for an award each year. You can apply, for example, for international trade one year, and you can apply for promoting opportunity the next. It's what they don't want you to do is to use the same data to go year on year after international trade, because you'd only be actually indeed adding 1 year onto your total. But it doesn't stop you going 2 years later for international trade. So you can't reapply for the same award category. Next. There is an awards cycle, and this is the reason you still have plenty of time to apply this year. The actual round for applications opened in May, and it closes on the 9th of September. That's why go away and download that form and start filling it in. They then go through an assessment process of the entries. They do due diligence. They have a panel of judges. There's only a small team in the Queen's Award for Enterprise office, it's 5, but they bring in absolute experts to do the judging. And I know that one of those experts for the Sustainability Award actually is one of the professors at one of the colleges, part of the university in Cambridge. Importantly, in March, the winners are approved, and you do get prior notification. And the important bit is the feedback to unsuccessful applicants. For the first time this year, I got to see a company's feedback, and it really is a useful document. It's something that shows you where you did well and you didn't do so well, and things that you need to improve for next time. And again, I'll mention that later, because there's some tips and hints that come from that you should all take note of. Winners are announced on the 21st of April. For those of you that are royalists, you'll know that's the Queen's birthday, hence the Queen's Award for Enterprise. The Queen's Award for Voluntary Service are actually announced in June on her official birthday. So they're both linked to her birthdays, but this one is her real birthday. And then we start the round all over again. So if you miss this year, you're into next year, but it'd be really good if you're in for this year. Winners this year, 220, and that's out of around 600 applicants. There is no ceiling on the number of people who win. If you are a good enough company and you reach the standard, you will win. This is about a standard. This isn't about numbers. And if you look at over the years, you'll see it's waxed and waned. Some years it's lower, some years it's a bit higher, but this year's it's 220. 4 double winners, that means they've won 2 awards. I'm never quite sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because if they perhaps staggered it, because you can only hold the Queen's Award for Enterprise for 5 years. So if you put in this year for 1 award and then next year for another, you then get to hold it on your websites and insignias for 6 years. So it's about strategy as well. 90% are SMEs, and this year 31 winners actually had less than 10 employees. And going back to the beginning, I have actually given an award in Cambridge to a fantastic company who are only 2 employees that won it for international trade. Absolutely brilliant business model. And then there are companies, and I know Marshalls are here and have won it before, who are up to 4,000, and Anglia Water 5,000 employees. So it's all ranges and sizes of companies. It's nothing specific that you have to fit into a certain criteria, and don't think that you're not worthy if you're small and perfectly formed. This year's winners, 128 in international trade, 66 in innovation, 19 in sustainable development, and 7 in promoting opportunity. The last 2 are the newest categories, and it's quite nice actually to see more in sustainable development, which often only has a very few, but they reinvigorated it last year, and they're going to be reinvigorating promoting opportunity this year. But there are companies I know within our ecosystem that could easily get the promoting opportunity award, and indeed we had one that won it this particular time. And you'll see that its history is based in international trade. That's why from the DTI perspective, that's why there are so many winners of international trade, which is still where people initially look to it if they're actually working in a new market and they've actually made tremendous successes in that area, to get some recognition for it, because it's a tough world out there. Next. This is just by region, and you'll see that the East had 27 in Cambridgeshire. Every year since I've been Lord Lieutenant, which is 3, we've had 8 winners. It hasn't gone up, it hasn't gone down. You could say actually a couple of years ago we had 9 awards given, but one was to Lenza, who actually won a double award. So it was 8 companies every year. And I think that actually our ecosystem could actually have the whole 27. We have so many really good companies. And as they say there's no quota or capita or amount of a cap on any amount of awards that are given. It's you have to apply, and if you're a good company or an excellent company, you will get an award. And this is just the East by statistics. We won't dwell on that. Okay, in the East, they just did a breakdown this year as to the reason why some people didn't get it. And although all the questions, the first one relating to social responsibility, were actually answered, there was little evidence that the company actually placed any significance on the area. So don't do something just because if you think that if you tick a box that you will actually be successful, because that won't work. They will see straight through it. And as I said before, they were really clear with a second company that actually if your company's growth isn't at a stage when you can have a complex social responsibility framework, you can talk to them about what you're planning to do and what you will do when you get to a certain size. So it's at least have your plans and explain your plans to them. Because really, if you tell the story of your organization, they will see, and it will ring true or not, they will see what you're doing, what you're planning to do, and the authenticity behind it. So please make sure that you think about it. So not a tick box, but actually then even if you're not doing brilliant stuff in that field, that doesn't matter and it won't preclude you from getting an award. It's just talk to them about what your plans are. Next one is the application would be strengthened with more detail on the overall importance of exporting to the company. So it's about what it means to you as an organization, why overseas exportation is important, and also your international and domestic strategies and how the business is actually run overseas. And there are complexities we all know with running businesses overseas. They want to see what they are and know how you've overcome them. Information was needed on whether the project had fulfilled its potential. So don't just put the project was good. You know, you need to give some evidence as to how it's achieved its potential and how it's achieved high impact. Say whether it had solved the issues that have affected off-site construction in the UK. That clearly was specifics to a build somewhere else and how they actually managed that. And it would be useful for them to have detailed information on the impact of the supply chain stakeholders, including savings to the business, to the supply chain, or to customers. So it really is important to say why whatever you've developed, innovated, or you've done has actually made a difference to your stakeholders. And that's an important part of the story. And on the final one, it says it's evident that the programme has a broad and positive impact, but there was limited focused analysis or evaluation of impact over time on different types of disadvantaged participants. So this is obviously something that's probably promoting opportunity. So it's looking at the impact, and they tell you what any future application would benefit from consideration. And I will just share a little bit from the one that I saw this year without naming the company. But this was, they put in for innovation. Actually, they put in for innovation and international trade. But I'm sure they'll get it next time because they got 4 pages of feedback, which was really feedback you can do something with it. It wasn't sort of glib stuff that is actually useless to anybody. It said the applicant should include a discussion of the innovation process and how their solution was developed, the technical challenge that they overcame and how they did it, the novel features of their innovation and how and why their solution is unique or superior compared to competitor offerings, anything that was learned from the innovation process. They're particularly interested in what you learned and then what you did differently as a result, benefits to the company, customers or others, including quantification and or testimonials where appropriate to validate these claims. And interesting, this is a market leading product but it had been on the market since 2007, and they hadn't discussed all the things that they'd done and redeveloped that product to keep it as the market leader. They just left it as everybody would know what it was. So it is really important that you look at the R&D and what you've done to improve it since you initially had the idea. And when I spoke to them, they'd only used 1,000 of the 3,000 words. So actually, if you're trying to tell your story in 1,000 words and they've given you 3,000, it's probably best to use them. Use them with good meaty stuff. Don't use them with just padding and waffle, but it is really important to use the words that you've been given and to use them appropriately. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And again, happy to answer any questions on that, but it really is about tell your story. And if you are, shall I just say, from the marketing team, and somebody, as in this case, one of the inventors and the manager said, we want an award just to get it for us, in not quite words to that effect, but you have to sit them down and make them tell you the story about how they invented it, what they overcame, what the problems were with working in the cupboard under the stairs. All those sorts of things really start to tell the picture of how it went from concept to reality, and now why they're in a big factory or whatever that you happen to be in. That's the celebrations. Bit premature at the moment, but that's what you have to look forward to. But I have to say the most important thing, it's a really great day for staff because they all realise that they're part of excellence. It doesn't matter whether you are the person booking the CEO's flights, although now it'll be Zoom calls, whether you're the person keeping the IT on the road, whether you are the people developing the product, whether you're the person with the initial idea. This is true teamwork. Excellent companies come from true teamwork. And that's the only way you become excellent. So how you take the idea and you make it really successful. So but for me, that's the most important thing in this. Everybody realizes what their company and their part in it has actually achieved. So some of the top tips that they're looking for, clearly eligibility, because that's a quick cross if you don't hit the eligibility criteria. They suggest that you plan your responses by downloading the PDF application form. And I have actually mentioned that twice already, so that should be high on your list. Use plain English. And if you use technical terms, if you could sort of put a glossary and explain what they are, because although you might use them every single day, the teams that will be assessing them won't probably know your area of science or wherever you've actually got your innovation or where you're actually working. So use plain English, provide evidence, and that's clearly from the company itself, but it's also from customers, suppliers, people who work with you should be able to tell you what difference it's made to them. As I mentioned before, tell your story, absolutely tell your story. Add collaborators and give yourself sufficient time. If you speak to Andy Harter at Real VNC, although clearly he knows how his company developed over years, and they have actually won it 3 times. He actually wrote it in a weekend. I'm not suggesting any of you write it in a weekend, and it depends how much you know your business, but it's not something that needs to take months and months poring over, but it is about marshalling your facts together and then writing them. And for many of you, it's just like doing a dissertation, but a much shorter dissertation. Not often do you get a 3,000 word dissertation to actually do, but it's the other thing that they say is really answer the questions. And again, talking to the judge that we have in Cambridge, to the amount of companies, and she was willing, a couple of Cambridge companies, to get the award, didn't answer the questions. Really important you answer the questions. Okay, next one. This is a little bit on each of the award categories. And some of this I've probably explained already, but innovation, what was the situation which led to your innovation, the challenges you've overcome, why your innovation is unique, how your innovation benefits your business and customers, and really make sure that you have quantitative and qualitative evidence. And never fear writing this all down, because you can have these slides and you can share them with whoever. Again, international trade, when describing your products and service and exporting strategy, use plain English. Your story again, why the penetration of a particular market has been an achievement, why you wanted to go there, were you the first, are you leading, have you had the fastest growing UK exporter in that market, So what makes it really a significant achievement that you're actually in this market and are achieving as well as you do? You can also use multiple markets. It doesn't have to be one market, but you have to choose the parameters that you're going for in terms of international trade. Why is your performance better than that of your competitors? And then I missed the last one on that one. Next one is, that's all right, I'm fine on that now. Sustainable development, they actually refocused this sustainable development, and there was a video message from the Prince of Wales, who's very much into ensuring that businesses are sustainable. Things that they're looking for, again, your policies and practices in plain English, what you're doing to be sustainable in your particular company compared to others, and how you're leading the way and influencing a more sustainable system. It's not, and it used to be about reduce, reuse and recycle, and they now use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And you might say, what are they? Well, I can tell you it's worth going on their website, and in a minute, next slide is going to show you what they are, which really does give you a broad range of areas where you can focus your sustainable development. We move on to the next one. You'll see it's enormous. There are 17 different goals. And you might think that no poverty is about third world, and maybe your organisation works there. But if anybody saw the headline this week that 1,000 children in the first 6 months of this year were taken into Addenbrooke's Hospital with malnourishment, you'll know that it could be on your doorstep. And there are things that you might be doing or supporting within the county and the city that might actually impact on that. Similarly, the poverty, if you are in Cambridge, you're in the most unequal city in the country, and that's over London and Oxford. So there are areas where you could have an impact locally. But there are lots of other areas in terms of education, gender equality, clean water, sanitation, things that you're doing, particularly in terms of affordable and clean energy, what you're doing in terms of work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure. There are lots of different areas that you can actually fall into with things that you may be doing. And the life below the water is around pollution, particularly in marine environments, and life on the land is about saving species and wild spaces and ensuring that we live in harmony with nature. And it even includes peace and justice systems and having partnerships to achieve the goal. So well worth a look in terms of actually what it entails. And you'll probably find that maybe even through some of your corporate social responsibility, you're already linking into some of those areas. But just a couple of tips from the organisation. You could leave it on that slide. But when Queen's and Water Enterprise spoke to us, they were saying that they were looking at how you are overcoming challenges in terms of sustainability, particularly in your system, and actually how you're producing a service or a product that might be sustainable. And then we actually did have Wilmot Dixon, who've gone to carbon neutral as a builder. So there are lots of different routes in that you can actually come at it, but you may be producing and you may be a zero carbon business. It's the way you do it or what you're doing could make you drop into this category. Okay, promoting opportunity. This is one they're actually re-looking at, but it really is about describing how you're helping socially disadvantaged individuals to progress. It could be through apprenticeships. The winners this year that we had in this category are stainless steel metal craft. They run out of Chatteris, and they've run an apprenticeship scheme for well over 100 years, which has got better and better. And now, as a big sort of steel industry, they're actually increasing numbers of women and young girls who are part of the apprenticeship scheme. So it can be very diverse. It could be that you've got degrees. You know, a lot of your employees are degrees, so you actually have a non-degree route. It could be that you're focusing and targeting on some of the deprived areas to encourage people to go through university education and to come to work in your organisation. It could be disability, it could be Black and ethnic minority, it could be any underrepresented group. So in terms of engineering, it could be that you're enhancing your female workforce. There are lots of different things that you could be doing, and there's one social enterprise that I know of that I hope is going to put in for it this year, who only employ people on the autistic spectrum the mid-range. And I think that they have an amazing case study, and they even give work opportunity, work experience opportunities to young people who are on the autistic spectrum. And that would actually fit in. Previous winners I've seen have done things with people who have been in prison. So it's a whole range of things that you could do to promote opportunity. But you have to show what the situation was like before your intervention, how you developed a support program, what it's enabled your organisation to do in terms of its culture, and how you've actually embedded it, and what are the benefits, because it's no good doing it if there are actually no benefits. So you need to show those benefits. And again, qualitative and quantitative evidence to show what you've done. Just a few changes they've made for this year, which is in terms of the Queen's Award for Enterprise. I mean, we all think that during challenging times, it is time to reflect and celebrate success. They've not changed the criteria of just going back from that, because it's not just people have had COVID-19, although that's probably the thing uppermost in our mind. They're very aware that particularly if you're in the north and the west, you suffered, and your businesses would have suffered from flooding. And there have been others who battled, and we might forget, although it's appearing on the television screens a little bit more now, in terms of Brexit, but they still want people to celebrate their success. So they haven't changed the eligibility criteria, that's exactly the same. But what they're saying, particularly if you're going for international trade, if this year's or last year's figures were impacted by that, you can delete that year. So let's say you put your financial data in sort of manually, and you can leave out a year. So it gives you shorter time periods that you can put in for international trade, and it explains it all there in terms of the time parameters. But they're very open that you don't have to put in one of the years, because they normally look for continuous growth in this arena, but they realize that that's actually a bit of a bridge too far. That's to say, if you have shown continuous growth, then I would think you're almost a slam dunk for an award, because that's exceptional and are going above and beyond in what are really, really difficult times. But I think the important thing is the very last. They will assess all applications on a case-by-case basis, and they'll evaluate successes and challenges by uncontrollable external factors. It's important that they see trends, patterns of each business's commercial success to see how well they performed before these challenging times. So again, it doesn't matter that we've had a blip in the country, whether it's Brexit, flooding, or COVID. They will look at what you have done in your business to overcome that blip, or maybe it's a longer term pattern, but whatever, it's how you've dealt with a challenge. And this is really about, if you think about the whole story that I've told so far, it's around how you overcome innovative challenges, or in making your innovation and taking it to market. So this is nothing different in terms of what have you done? Have you gone into a corner, curled up and thought, wake me up when this is all over? Well, you probably won't get an award. But if you've actually sat down and worked out how you can make your business sustainable, and you continue to grow it and develop it, that's when you are the mark of a really, truly excellent company. And that's all feathers in your cap. And the most important one is the Queen's Award for Enterprise, small and perfectly formed. As I said, 5 people, but they are there. So if you need any additional advice that the Lieutenancy can't give you, if you contact them and ask the question, they will get back to you pretty quickly with an answer.